guys, for this week's episode, I'm gonna keep it simple and tell you a little story. My first job out of college was working at a TV station. And for that first week, I had to do some training to get familiar with the equipment and what it's like to work with clients. After a couple of days in the office, my coworker and I had a full day of shoots scheduled. We packed up the van and left early the next morning to arrive at my first client shoot. It was for an event space, so we poked around and got some shots of the facilities, but then they wanted to get a shot of the lake and the paddle boats that people could use. I had the staff get in one and paddle out while I set up the camera and got some wide shots from the shore. Then I picked up the camera rig like this and walked on the dock to get some different angles. I got set up, I got the shot as they're docking the boats. I said, great, let's move on, we got everything we needed. I picked up the tripod the same way I did before. I throw it over my shoulder, but the camera pops off somehow. I watch it hit the ground and tumble into the lake. I turned to my coworker with this shocked look on my face, thinking I just lost my job. After a few minutes, the facilities guy came and fished the camera off the bottom of the lake, and of course, it was dead. I was in shock because I was living a nightmare. I just trashed a camera on my first week, on my first shoot of my first job. My career was over, but we had a full set of shoots that day, and we had to figure out a way to make them happen. So we borrowed a camera from another station that was nearby, and really the rest of the day's a blur to me. When I got back to the office, I was way too scared to talk to my boss, even though he already knew what had happened. I eventually summed up the courage, went in and apologized, knowing that I was probably about to lose my job. He was actually pretty chill about it. He was upset that we lost the equipment, but he said accidents do happen, and I ended up working there for over 2 years. And that's pretty much the end of the story. All I had to do was live with being the guy who dropped the camera in the lake. But what did I learn? Obviously, to make sure the camera's always locked on the tripod, I'm not dropping any more cameras. The second thing I learned is to value your equipment. If I was paying attention at all, I would have noticed that the camera wasn't locked on the tripod, and if I really valued it at all, I wouldn't have even taken it onto the dock. It wasn't that cool of a shot. Finally, I learned to not be afraid to make mistakes, and then when I do, to own up to them. After all this went down, I had to admit to what I did, accidentally, and to live with the consequences, which there weren't really any, just Lake Boy. Ugh. This week's video isn't that intricate because I'm gearing up for some bigger projects, so subscribe and stick around because I'm bringing the heat pretty soon. I'll see you next week.